What is up, fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale, coming at you without my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes, but we are pleased and grateful to be joined by the equally certified fantabulous, Kyle, co-host of the Court Cousins podcast, covering the Orlando Magic. They do a great job over there. I only recently stumbled upon to them, and they were a joy to listen to. Follow them on the Twitter machine at court_cousins, spelled exactly as it sounds, double C's. And they're wherever you get your podcast platforms. They are on YouTube, and they're going to be on all the pod mediums. I will include links to all that stuff in the podcast and YouTube description. So go check them out. Kyle, this is your first time on the podcast. So
I'm honored.
You didn't know it was a mistake just yet. But how are you doing?
Well, I'm really happy to be here with you, Dan. Thanks so much. I love what you do. I just hope I put on a good show for all those thermonuclear MRFers out there tonight. And I'm going to try to just be out of this world like the alien aesthetic that we're going for. I've got my conspiracy glasses in the back just ready to go. So we'll see if I want to throw out any hot takes.
I'm excited for those. We're going to need, I hope those come on no fewer than 12 times during the course of this podcast. And I also see there was where I saw Baby Yoda in the background. So we're keeping the theme right there. And I like the aesthetic behind you. I like the lighting, and I like the Orlando mascot, whose name is like failing me right now. What's their mascot?
Stuff, baby.
Stuff.
It's not.
I love
it's not things.
Stuff
it's stuff.
in the hoop. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to ask
Dragon.
you. I've always wanted to ask you, Dan. Now, I'm sorry for stepping on you there. You've got the T-Mac in the background. And now that we're talking Magic, I need a little history behind that. What's the context? Are you a closeted Magic fan, or are you just a T-Mac fan? What's happening? Yes.
I'm clearly an Orlando Magic fan. Some people would claim that I'm just a fake Magic fan trying to curry favor with a non-glamour market. But I loved that Orlando Magic era. That aesthetic is just my favorite. It's not the hardcore pinstripe jersey, but I like the pinstripes coming down the side and the white. And I also loved T-Mac, and that Magic era is like one of my great what ifs of like, what if these dudes stayed healthy? Looking at T-Mac, looking at Grant Hill, and even just the stories of like around that time where they almost got Tim Duncan,
right?
And how close they came to getting that. So someone gave me that jersey because they knew that I was obsessed with both the aesthetic and T-Mac himself. So it hangs there. And for anyone who cares, the jersey next to it, I don't know if you've ever gotten to this. People have asked me who it is. It's Danilo Gallinari, because it's obviously Danilo Gallinari. I might be the only person on the planet who likes the Knicks St. Patty's Day colorways that they got rid of years ago. I loved those things.
Yeah, I can't get there with you. I don't know if I could ever like a Knicks jersey, but
well, that's fair. But like the Knicks jerseys are so boring. Their version of being creative is like, hey, let's make everything all black and orange, and it's just like, step outside the box. Give me green and orange, and I'll love it.
This isn't a jersey show, but for the Magic fans that are tuning in, we're craving new jerseys. We're craving some of the nostalgia. It's our 35th season. We're just begging, give us something. Give us the stars of the T-Mac era. I mean, people really want to go back to the pinstripes. I say hold your horses, folks. It's probably not going back there, but let's see what the Magic front office and the marketing team develop for us this year.
That'll have to be a podcast when all the alternate jerseys are released this year, which we've never done, which we probably should have. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to please fans. Like, if you just gave them the pinstripes, the Orlando Magic fans would probably be over the moon and back. And so it's not even a matter of like, you don't even need to come up with something innovative. These people everyone wants nostalgia now.
Yeah.
But some teams are just, they haven't done a good job. I think the Knicks and the Celtics have sucked something hard when it comes to their jerseys. I'm not going to lie. They are just, what's the opposite of innovative? Just unoriginal and lazy, they feel like. Like you said, not a Jersey podcast, though. It's an Orlando Magic podcast. So I want to start here. Nationally, I think people who didn't have as good a pulse on the team saw the cap space landscape, saw the Magic could have or would have over 20 million in cap space, could get to more if they really wanted to, and just expected them to do something big. They end up with Joe Ingles. And I think that took a lot of people nationally were just like, blah. Even my co-host Grant wasn't too thrilled with Orlando's offseason when we went through grades. Right. Were you expecting something bigger? Is this about what you expected? Were you disappointed they weren't even linked to some sort of bigger swing? Where did you land on just kind of the machinations of their offseason?
Yeah, I definitely was not expecting anything big. I think most in the Magic community were not expecting something big. And if you're someone that's followed the track record of what used to be Weltman and Hammond, who were coming from Milwaukee, now Hammond has stepped aside and it's now Weltman and Parker running the Orlando Magic front office. But you saw in Milwaukee what John Hammond, they're patient. They're not going to jump into anything crazy. I mean, thinking about that situation, they drafted Giannis. They picked up Chris Middleton as a reclamation project. And you can see the parallels here in Orlando. And us Magic fans are hoping those parallels continue to a championship. But we've got, we think, our guy, or maybe two guys, if we're going to talk about Franz Wagner a little bit, which I
You've
know
got
we
two
will.
guys. You've
Yeah,
got
we've
two
got
guys. Go ahead and say
exactly.
it.
We've done that. We've got the reclamation project in Markelle Fultz, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. We tried to have another one in Bol Bol. That didn't work out. But you can, but you can see the pattern again evolving from Weltman, who learned under the tutelage of John Hammond. They're going to be patient. Jeff Weltman always talked about, I'm not going for the sugar high. I'm going to be patient, and we're going to develop this thing in the right way. We're going to take a swing at some point. You know, just like they took a swing in Milwaukee and they went out and they got Drew Holiday to kind of finish that puzzle with also Brook Lopez. But we're not there yet. That was in the second contract of Giannis. It's so early on right now for us. I mean, it's a great thing that people in the national media and national fans are saying, hey, why aren't they going all in? Because that means there's a lot of talent here in Orlando, and people are considering that we could make a jump. But I think it's a little too early. Magic diehard fans, we know it's a little too early. It's coming. I don't even think next offseason. Maybe once we start getting into Franz's second contract and then Paolo's, that's when I can see us really pushing the chips in. But I think we're still a ways off. So, no, this didn't really surprise me. I wanted to get shooting, and we got it in the form of Joe Ingles. It's 40% three-point shooter. That's what we needed, right?
Look, he's a trillion years old, but he was coming off an ACL. He was coming off an
Yeah.
ACL injury last year, and he was a lot better than I expected. I think he's probably closer. I would say he's further away from cooked defensively than you would think. And
Yeah.
the Magic don't need necessarily, like, you can have one player on the floor who's a defensive liability with this Magic roster. And so I think that really helps. But what type of role should we expect Joe Ingles to have based off this addition? Is this, we sign this guy to come in, soak up real secondary minutes as a ball handler, floor spacer, or was this more about not necessarily break in case of emergency, but he's not really going to play as much as you might think, and this was more about getting a nice high character veteran guy in a locker room that is still, when you look up and down the roster, not saying these guys aren't high character already, but this is still a fairly young team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the latter of those two. I think it's a high character guy, uh, hilarious dude from all reports that's going to fit in well with this young Magic team. I don't know. Where is he going to fit in the depth chart is a great question. It's a nice hypothetical to think about. I'd say maybe he's going to be the third or fourth guy off the bench. You think he's going to be backing up Paolo, probably playing the four or the three, somewhere in there. Coach Mosley last year with the rotations, he liked to take first of all, he would put Suggs in immediately for Gary Harris. He was the first sub in. And then soon thereafter, it would be Franz off the court, because Mosley loves to see Moritz and Franz working that second unit and really giving the keys to the second unit to Franz. So how is it going to work this year? I know we're going to talk about some of these other guys. I think Suggs is going to start. Do you then, does AB come in? Cole Anthony has been our kind of six-man microwave scorer. So I got to figure he's going to be relieving Markelle. Yeah, I think when Paolo comes off, you'll see Joe Ingles go on. But, Paolo played 32 minutes a game last year, I think, something like that. So I think that Joe Ingles is going to be soaking up some of those minutes. Maybe we'll go like small ball 5 at some point, and he'll get a little extra playing time. I don't know.
Inject that shit into my veins, please. I'll need someone to tag me on Twitter if they see Joe Ingles playing the 5 during a Magic game and I'm not watching. I'm gonna need to know.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that. I meant in a small ball 5 lineup when maybe Paolo is playing the 5 or something.
Oh, okay.
Ingles may get a few more minutes. but I really don't see this as, a big. He's not going to be a primary option, I don't think. And if he is, like you said, break glass in case of emergency, Houston, I think we have a problem. There is an emergency, I think, if we see Joe Ingles getting a lot of minutes this year.
I think, look, 12 to 15 minutes is probably the perfect Joe Ingles role at this point anyway, when you're looking at his age. Right. And if you do have aspirations of getting to the play-in, maybe getting into the playoffs and wanting him there available for that, there's value in not overusing him during the regular season. Their actual big addition of the offseason is they draft Anthony Black, which was just such like an Orlando Magic front office pick at this point. My two questions with him, because I do like Anthony Black, but my full disclosure would be this was not the team I wanted him to end up on, just because they had guys who can already really handle the ball and who are, I don't want to say, because I believe in Paolo's jumper, but like, and I believe in Jalen Suggs too, but like floor spacing liability collectively. And he ends up here. How concerned are you about that fit? And then also, what type of role do you expect him to have in year one where, this organization's still rebuilding, but like there are some expectations now. So are they going to give him the freedom to fail or the runway to fail?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he really fits. I mean, let me get the shades on for the first conspiracy theory of the evening, because I don't think that the front office, that was their guy. I mean, I think that we had targeted Asar Thompson, and I think the Pistons ruined the party, because that just makes so much more sense on this lineup, at least a guy who is touted as someone who could shoot. And you're right. Once that went, I just said they went for the magic guy, the long defensive player, and that's going to get him playing time. But it's really tough. It's really tough, Dave. How does he get the runway? As you said, Jeff Weltman says we got to give these guys a shot. Well, where's the shot coming from, Jeff? Because, I mean, I've got the number 20 on right now. This is our boy, Markelle Fultz. A lot of us in the Magic community believe in this guy. When he came back, we went from 5-20 to an over 500 team. So he is a winner. He is very key to this team. And there just seems to be a lot of replication with the skill set that Anthony Black will bring in. Now, I think he's going to be the backup point guard or a backup playmaker with the second unit. But because of the lack of shooting, and as of right now, the lack of shooting from Markelle Fultz, I do believe it will get better, but it's never going to be elite, I don't think. Because of that duplication of skill, can you have both those guys on the court at the same time when, you've got Paolo, who's not yet a very good three-point shooter. Franz is about 37% right now, which is fine. And then Wendell, that seems like a defensive stopper team. No one's going to score on us, but are we going to be able to score? Because teams will just park in the lane, and what are we going to do? That's the problem. Now, seeing him at Summer League, man, he is big. He's
huge.
I don't know what he's advertised. I think when he was coming to the league, it said 6'7", and Jett Howard's supposed to be 6'9", but he's standing eye to eye with them. And also DJ Wilson, who was our center, I believe. Am I getting his name right? They were eye to eye. I mean, this guy looks big. He's a really good rebounder, a much better rebounder than I knew. And his court vision is superior. But I think he took 3 or 4 3-point shots in all of Summer League games that he played. And if you're going to let it go, Anthony, that's the time. So It was very concerning to me that our top draft pick, who should have the keys in the Summer League and just do whatever you want, buddy, let it fly, was not even shooting even when he was open from 3. So it does create quite the quagmire here for the Orlando Magic. I don't know how Markelle Fultz feels about it, because it seems like they just tried to draft the insurance policy. And if things don't go well,
it's a high enough pick to where you can even say, is it just his replacement rather than an insurance policy? And I'm with everything you said pretty much. I do think the lineup you outlaid, it might get just enough spacing if Paolo is as good this year as a shooter as I expect him to be. But when you talk about functional shooting, you have Franz Wagner, and that's Wendell Carter Jr. and Paolo, you're going to want them to do more stand-still stuff. And with Anthony Black, I didn't watch a ton of him in college. It was more of a crash course when he was coming into the NBA. Yeah. I don't know that he does enough off the ball offensively to where you can say, well, we're just going to use him as a forward and take him out of his point guard him. And the other thing there is, even if he was, have you generated enough secondary spacing to actually use him away from the ball? And that's where you run into these issues. And so I think this, I know I'd slotted this later in the podcast, but where do you sort of land then? Like, how invested are you in Markelle Fultz if you're the Magic? He is extension eligible at the end of September, I believe, and he's played well. And I've gotten shit on this podcast. We've gotten shit on this podcast because we suggest like guards who can shoot as like targets that the like ideally it would be like a wing player, combo forward maybe, but like we've suggested ball handling guards who could get the rock off. And we have our point guard of the future, Markelle Fultz. I think he's a very good NBA player now. He shot like 50% on 2-point jumpers last year, gets to the rim. He's fantastic. His size defensively. I think he has a great feel in the lane he's gotten a lot better at not picking up his dribble as well. If you're going to have him be the person who's your first or even second orchestrator, depending on how there's Franz and there's Paolo. So you consider him like the 2. The 1.5, the 2, you need to have a lot more spacing around him. And now you bring in Anthony Black. Right. I'm just wondering if it's going to come to a head sooner than people think. And does this manifest in like, oh, is Markelle Fultz even on this team by 24, 25? So just where are you on how much of a believer are you in Markelle Fultz driving? And again, like a really good offense, not just the one we just witnessed last year.
Yeah, well, we got to take what we can get right now, Dan. No, I mean, I'm extremely high on Markelle Fultz. I love the way he plays the game. It's a beautiful game of basketball that he plays, and it's a unique game of basketball that he plays. You're right. He shot for the first time in his career just over 30% from beyond the arc, and teams know that. I mean, the league knows that that's not his forte. He's not taking many 3-point shots, but
and they defend him like it.
Right.
Too, I think is the big thing.
But he still gets into the lane. Because of the irky jerkiness to his game, it's very different. And you can see why he went number 1. That's special. I mean, he was top, 95th percentile in assist percentage in terms of how many teammates are making buckets off of his assists. I love that. I mean, he's just the facilitator. He can get where he wants on the floor to his kill spots, as he says, the kill spots. He loves the elbows. And so he's been, rebuilding his shot, that thoracic, that nerve outlet syndrome that he had for a while. You could see the shot was really odd for years. And now his mid-range shot looks really good.
It is pretty.
It's a high release. And he still had the weird push shot last year for most of the year from behind the arc, which was so odd to me. He's shooting beautifully from 18 feet, but then he steps out a little ways and he has this weird push shot. But at the end of the year, his mechanics on the mid-range shot was the same as from beyond the arc. So, that's just here. Conspiracy number 2. All right, there they go on. That Markelle Fultz's shot is now fixed, ladies and gentlemen, and he's going to be coming out. No, I mean, that's a little hyperbolic, but there's potential to be a little bit better from beyond the arc. That's all I'm saying. He's averaging last year career high in points, assists, rebounds, steals, field goal percentage, as you said, and his effective field goal percentage has gone up every year since he's been in the league. It's tough because he is, Dan. He has the intangibles. Like there's nothing that I can really point to. All those statistics I said are nice, but he's the leader of the team. We have Paolo Banchero, we have Franz Wagner, and at the end of the game, Mosley puts the ball in Markelle Fultz's hand. And he comes through. He came through numerous times in the clutch for us. Even when he'd make a mistake, he's that type of guy that he gets a turnover, but then he gets a steal, and he makes it right. He just has a winning personality, and his defense doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion.
No,
he's
a
top
monster.
Top 10 in steals per game amongst guards who played at least 60 games. So really, I mean, you talked about the extension. I would love to have him extended for, at least 3 years. Can we get a 3+ or a 2+ or something like that, which was his previous contract? That would be comfortable for me. That would, that contract would expire around when Paolo's new contract was needed. And then when Anthony Black's rookie contract was up. So that would give you that precipice that you're talking about when it's all coming to a head. I don't think it comes to a head this year. Markelle Fultz is the guy. He's going to have the keys, but you're absolutely right. Something's got to give somewhere. He's got to become a better shooter, or, Anthony Black, who we're just talking about, could be the guy that takes over for the Magic. We'll see. I don't know. I'm really interested.
That or Anthony Black might be a trade piece for them when they actually do look to consolidate. And if you ask me to choose right now, I'm choosing Markelle Fultz. Like I want to keep Fultz if I'm Orlando. It's not even close. And in the interim, which I did not mention, like they can stagger these two, especially when Black is a rookie. It just really comes down to when I look at this roster, if Markelle Fultz is going to be the floor general for an elite offense, I just don't see like a pathway to Anthony Black being a member, like a really critical member of the rotation. Because you don't want to get to a point where you have to stagger guys so rigidly. Like you don't want to have to put that thought in. The other rookie that they're going to have coming in, Jett Howard. Do you have any early impressions of him and how he's going to fit? And look, he is someone who, from everything I know about him, would be pretty crucial to tying all this stuff that we're talking about on offense together when you want to carve out more spacing.
I mean, definitely. He's got a killer mentality. I mean, I haven't watched too much of him besides what we saw in Summer League.
Whenever I've looked, I was just under the impression that he was like basically like a 6'5" guard. And then I remember seeing him for something like, no, this dude's a monster.
He's big. Yeah. I mean, he's going to probably be, you would think he'd be coming in the backup 3 role right now, backing up Franz. And that we need shooting. And if he can do it, he didn't really come through. His numbers weren't great from Summer League. But as I said, he ain't shy. He ain't shy of shooting. And we need some more guys on the team like that. I think Magic fans, we're going to be really excited to see him play. And he brings a lot more, movement than, say, a Caleb Houston, who we may or may not talk about later. We gave him a small 3-year contract. He's pretty much like a stationary shooter. Guy that is about the same size as Jett Howard, plays about the same position. And I think that's, who Jett Howard, those minutes are up for grabs. Caleb Houston is going to have to put up or shut up this year because Jett Howard, obviously much more high-profile draft pick, and he just brings a little bit more off the dribble. He had the ball in his hands at the end of some games in Summer League, whatever that is. But I like what I see. He has some of that Cole Anthony dog in him where, Cole Anthony, again, not afraid to shoot it. You can't, I hate, and that's why it was so frustrating to see Anthony Black passing up open looks. You're not going to see that from Jett. Can he play defensively and keep himself on the floor and in the rotation? We'll see, but he's another Michigan guy. Call us the Michigan or Magic or the Orlando Wolverines, whatever have you, because we've got a slew of the guys on our team. And whatever you want to make fun of that, those guys come in and they know how to play. So Juwan Howard's doing something right over there in Michigan. So now we got his son. I'm excited to see him play.
He's actually, I think, and I love Anthony Black, was one of my favorite prospects coming into the draft. I really hope they unleash Jett Howard, though, just because of what their offense needs. And I think that when you kind of look at this team, the way that they're built for a team that's so good defensively, they don't have a lot of just like pure wing types. I don't even know if that's Jett Howard, but my point would be there's minutes available, like if you can play wing minutes. And so I would really like to see them give him some runway to see what he's going to be able to give you on offense, because even if he's not hitting threes, the types of threes he can get off. So the difficulty and then coupled with the volume, that just opens up your offense for we're going to talk about Paolo in a second, how good that dude is when he's going to get into the lane, things he could do around the basket. Imagine what he could do if there's just more space than he had last year. And so I'm hoping we get to see more of Jett Howard than I think that we're actually going to get to see.
Yeah, and I think he'll be on that second unit. He'll be playing with guys like, Moritz, Wagner, and probably Franz will be on the court with him sometimes, and then Cole Anthony and Anthony Black. The scoring needs to come from somewhere, and I think he's going to see some open shots. He's going to have his opportunities, and hopefully the young man knocks them down because Lord knows we need some shooting, as you said. So
Paolo Banchero, as I wrote in the outline, is hashtag that dude. That's been established 10 times over. And so along those lines, I have there's a 3-prong question or segment, whatever you want to call it, on Banchero. Let's start here. What impressed you or surprised you the most about him as a rookie?
I think what impressed me the most and what I've been yearning for in the Orlando Magic in this NBA game that we have nowadays is getting to the line, man. He's getting to the charity stripe. 7.4 free throw attempts per game. That's 11th in the league for a rookie. And Magic fans, we haven't had a guy like that gets those free buckets on a regular nightly basis. And in the NBA, that wins you basketball games. So it may not be the prettiest all the time, but man, is it good to have a guy like that gets the calls, that draws the contact, that gets to the line. It was just a breath of fresh air. I was ecstatic to have that type of dude. I mean, you can't really matching LeBron, 40, 20-point games as a rookie, matching this guy called Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, only rookie to achieve 600 points, 200 rebounds, 120 assists in his first 31 games. The guy's a Swiss Army knife. He does it all. The thing that I love most about him is he's a humble superstar, at least right now. He always says the right thing. He gets excited about getting his teammates involved. And I get excited about having this guy in a Magic uniform, hopefully for a very long time. I'm not even going to mention the possibility of a team on the West Coast that, in the Pacific Northwest region, that's not happening. It doesn't exist. I'm not going to think about it.
I mean, and that's even stuff like that. If people start talking about someone entering their sophomore year leaving, well, that's like, yeah. we gotta pump the brakes on that one. The free throw stuff is incredible. And just like when you look at the rookies who average like 25 plus points and I think it was 10 plus free throws per 100 possessions, it's like Paolo and a bunch of dudes who are going to make the Hall of Fame. Right. And so that's a pretty big harbinger. I was actually pretty impressed with his defense. I think there's a lot more, I don't know what the word would be. I don't want to throw switchable out there. He's a lot more versatile and much less of a liability, not just by what I was expecting from Paolo Banchero, what I knew about his standards, but just like from a rookie's standards. And to have someone positionally who I think when you watch him, okay, like they're going to have to move him around a little bit. The fact that he can be moved around and that you can envision scenarios because he's also a good enough rebounder, he's strong, where they really want to get to additional small ball 5 looks where it won't be Joe Ingles at the 5, as we clarified earlier, it'll be Paolo Banchero at the 5. Like, you can do that. And so I think he gives you a lot more optionality on the defensive end than people credit. And even if you're going to play him lower, stash him on a lower usage wing, again, just his rebounding, there's going to be the benefit of that. So even if you're going to try and hide him on somebody, you're still doing yourself a service by, hey, we're going to ensure that once that shot goes up, he'll be someone who can end the possession. And there's value in that too.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I mean, all the shit that was talked about him was about his defense coming in. I mean, there was also, let me get the conspiracy shades out one more time. The sweat thing, there was like he sweats too much story. I don't know. There was that. And there was that he can't play defense. But you're right. He showed that he's extremely switchable. And FIBA World Cup, rest in peace, USA team just lost to the Germans. We'll talk about Franz Wagner in a moment. Not yet, though. He played the 5. Like there were very few minutes that he played the Orlando Magic at the 5. On a smaller 5, it worked in FIBA. It worked at times. I mean, he destroyed New Zealand, those poor guys. But he showed that he's also can switch out onto smaller guards. And you're right, he can handle himself. And that's huge in a Coach Mosley defense and an Orlando Magic team that loves their length. And Coach Mosley loved playing the zone and switching on defense. So those are the two things he really loved to do. All the switchability, and Paolo Banchero can do that. So that's great to have in your superstar.
We might have just covered it, but what's like the biggest part of the Paolo experience that doesn't get enough national attention? I think his free throws received plenty of national attention this past year.
I think his passing, really, like 3.7 assists doesn't necessarily jump off the screen, but for a guy who's an elite scorer as well, I mean, some of the passes that he made were just spectacular. I mean, you didn't see him from a guy that size, and his handle, he's like a freaking ballerina out there at 6'10", or he's coming down the lane. He's 250-ish pounds. I mean, Doris Burke goes crazy for the guy's frame, and add on to that the soft touch and the court vision, and the fact that I said earlier that he loves that. Like, he really genuinely enjoys it. He's not just out there to get his own. He wants to pass the ball. He wants to get guys involved. And I think as he continues to grow as a scorer, we're going to see him, managing double teams even better, hitting guys. And I can see that number ticking up a little bit as he continues on. And I'm just, it's great to see in your superstar that he loves to distribute that much. He's not a selfish eye first guy. And you can see that in the way that he passes the ball.
Yeah, I think he's got to get quicker passing out of some of the double teams. but
You're right.
he was making complicated passes in those situations. And I think the bigger thing too is if they can get to a point where they're consistently surrounding him with more spacing, he is going to devastate
Right.
guys running off the baseline or even just finding those corner 3-point shooters. And that's what I'm really excited for. And so I would think, look, right now, Markelle Fultz is their best facilitator.
Yes.
We jump ahead. Anthony Black is still on this team. Markelle Fultz is still on this team in a couple of years. I fully expect Paolo Banchero might become their best passer. I'm so high on his passing that it's probably not even funny.
Wow.
I'm so high on it that it's probably
Wow.
erroneous, that it's probably a bad omen for his future. And some of the passes he tried, and like I said, the reaction time in some of those situations, it's going to get quicker. He was a rookie.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the part of his game that I'm surprised we haven't heard more about when even the spotlight's on the Magic, is just because this is someone who I think can drive your entire offense. And they didn't even really put him in that situation as much as you would think. Like Franz Wagner ran more pick and rolls last year per game than Paolo Banchero did. And
really?
So this is someone who is like, there's room for him to do even more as a playmaker. And I think he's going to eat up that room at some point because he's that good.
From your lips to God's ears, sir. I'm gonna have to pass these shades over to you. I don't know he's gonna be the best over Markelle. See, I'm just a Markelle Fultz stan. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look,
that was a little much.
What's the one thing about him in year 2, whether it's something he needs to improve upon or you want to see him add, that you're going to be watching most closely for?
I mean, it's probably a little bit cliche, but his efficiency. He's just got to get a little bit better with his shot selection. Sometimes he was forcing shots when, as you said, he could have been passing out, forcing through a double team, things like that. But 46.5% effective field goal percentage, that was bottom 10% in the league for forwards. As a rookie, hey, that's okay. But if you're really going to make that superstar jump, that needs to, he needs to get to his spots more effectively. He loves running the horn. We love running the horn set with him so that he can operate from the elbow, especially the right elbow. So I expect him to be able to get to those spots more effectively, and I want to see that tick up. What about you? What are you most excited for in second year?
I think so. I'll be watching his passing more, and I'm going to be looking at the volume of what's he doing as an initiator. It's not just about pick and rolls, but I want to see that go up. And then the other thing, I mean, it's pretty basic, but I think it's a pretty big deal, is I want to see the 3-point attempts. Like, those got to come up. I don't even necessarily, I care about the percentage. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But 4.2 per 36 minutes is just not enough right now. And he went through pockets of time where he shot well enough from 3 for long enough that it's, hey, just jack up that volume. And if you're at 32%, we'll live with it, because that puts pressure on defenses in ways I still don't think people fully appreciate. And I always come back to, he's a better shooter now, but he's still not great. Marcus Smart. He's reined in his off the dribble attempts. But even when he was taking too many of those, the fact that he's willing to take 6, 7+ 3-pointers per 36 minutes, that puts pressure on the way defenses scramble. And if you can hit them, he had one good 3-point shooting season, I think, Marcus Smart did. If you look at the difference between how defenses guard him versus how they'll guard Dylan Brooks or someone from beyond the arc, or even Markelle Fultz right now, it can be night and day. And so I just want to see that number come up and it's a cliche, but I think in his case, every other part of his game is already so dynamic, and the skeleton of effectiveness is just there, that it's okay to say, just get those 3-point attempts up.
Right. It only takes one. You're absolutely right. Just make the defenses think about it. And I guess the other thing I really want to see from him is the free throw percentage come up a little bit. I mean, 73%. I did the math before we got on here. He left, assuming he would have shot 100% from the line, which is absurd, he left 134 points out there. I want to see him, let's get that up, Paolo. We just appraised you for how fantastic you are at getting to the line, how historic you are at getting to the line, in fact. But if you're only making 70% of those attempts, it doesn't help the team as much as it could. So that's really what I'm hoping for as well in his second year.
It would be nice just from one area, whether it's the free throw line, his finishing at the rim, which I think was largely fine. There's 3-point shooting, mid-range, whatever. I just want him to have elite efficiency from what it's Paolo shot 87% at the foul line, or Paolo shot 70% at the rim, or Paolo shot I don't know, 49% on push shots or something. I just want him to have one of those. This one area where you point to okay, like just lights out in that area.
And that will get him to, 25, 26 points a game if he gets there in one of those areas, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if he's hitting like, we should have done the math on if he shot like 83 to 85% at the foul line, which is high, but it's not unreasonable.
No.
Like that would be something that could be a complete game changer. On top of, you have to assume he's going to improve his efficiency just from areas of the floor in general. Even if it's okay, not elite, it's, he shot better than 30% from three, and he shot better than 38% between 3 and 10 feet or whatever it was last season. So still incredibly high on him. And that's just, I don't think he gets forgotten about, but like when you see a lot of conversations about, I want to start a team with a player 23 and under or 25 and under, he invariably always appears too low. I think including on our list that we made earlier this summer, I had him, I think it was number 5 on my big board, and I was too much of a coward to pick him until it was like 7 or 8 or something. And I walked away, I was like, yeah, even that was probably too low. And Magic fans were actually pretty mad about it.
You bastard, Dan. Now, I'm interested on your take on this because Magic fans, we've been talking a little bit about this. Him playing with Team USA this summer, we're talking about the areas that we want him to improve, and yet he's been used as a 5. And there was a little bit of a civil war within the Orlando Magic community about should he play for Italy and have the team around him where he gets to just be the guy and get going at that, or with Team USA where we just saw he averaged 9 points. Thank goodness he was backing up Triple J, who gets in foul trouble like no one I've ever seen. So he got some decent minutes, but again, it was at the 5. He was an ancillary piece. He was a second thought. He was our third thought on offense. Do you think how do you perceive that move from him? And is there any impact for you? Are you worried about that at all?
So here's my blunt take. I cannot bring myself to care about what happens for these players in FIBA.
Okay,
and
that's fair.
I'll point to, look at some of the icons, or better yet, remember Olympics Melo? That was never gonna, they tried it a little bit as he got older at the NBA. It never worked that way. You're just dealing with such a scale of talent on Team USA, even when they're not throwing out their A++ squad. I just can't bring myself to care. I would like to see him play more 5, but the fact that he played 5 for like, I read more into what I'm going to see in Summer League than what I'm going to see from Team USA, just because the collection of star talent, even on the worst team, is such that it makes Brandon Ingram, like Brandon Ingram can't be a complimentary player, always needs to have the ball in his hands. It's like, all right, but like this is a pretty specific circumstance where he's playing off all these other dudes, and Team USA doesn't really even have like a true big, aside from where they have Walker Kessler, Paolo, and Triple J, who's not, he's like really kind of a 4 at this point. So I can't bring myself to have an opinion on it. He's where he wanted to be, and I think that's all that matters. Would you expect the Magic, though, to maybe test out more Paolo at the 5 this year?
That's been talked a lot and debated after the New Zealand game. We're like, yeah, play him with the 5, sure. But I don't really see it, to be honest with you, Dan. Like, very specific circumstances. Am I confident that he could bang with like a Chet Holmgren style 5? Sure. But in terms of if they're trotting out even like a guy like Thomas Bryant, who's not a great center or anything, just a center, a 7-foot center, Paolo's going to struggle with that. I mean, it's not going to be easy unless you're putting him, unless he's not really playing the defensive 5 and he's playing next to like Jonathan Isaac, who playing against next Jonathan Isaac, that's a whole other, that's a hilarity. I should put on the glasses.
Jonathan Isaac was playing? Wow.
I know, exactly. No, but your point is well taken. We shouldn't read too much into FIBA. You don't need to tell us Magic fans about this. We saw Evan Fournier go light the world on fire every Olympics and at FIBA, and we're like, okay, this is the year. He's going to come back as the #1 scorer. Here he comes. Oh, yeah, Evan Fournier just won the silver or the gold. Oh, no, he's just the same. Okay, damn.
Yeah. So the Paolo stuff with that, like I said, I can't bring myself to care there. But Franz Wagner, already sort of this every level scorer, probably an underrated passer at this point, probably even an underrated defender at this point. What is the next frontier as we get into year 3 of the Franz Wagner experience?
Yeah, so the big progress I'm looking for with Franz, I mean, he's already, let's give praise. I mean, he did just defeat Team USA 22 points. We love the German Wonder Kid. He is so great. We love him on the Magic. there's just nothing he can't do. The next frontier we saw from his sophomore campaign, 18 and a half, 4 rebounds, 4.1 rebounds, 3.5 assists. I think the next frontier for him is a 50, 40, 90 guy. I mean, he shot 48.5% from the field, 36.5 for three. So I guess that's the leap that he would have to take, and 84% from the line. So we love us some Franz Wagner. He's an Iron Man. He played 79 games and then 80 games. He has it off the glass both ways. The Euro steps through the lane are just dangerous, and you got to keep sharp objects away from Franz Wagner because the man loves to cut. He's cerebral. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective and to score buckets. So I think continue to tick up in that three-point shot, get that 36.5% up a little bit. And then the other one is getting some more respect and getting to the line a little bit more. If we can have, as we already said, Paolo's getting to the line 7.5 times. If that goes up, and now Franz is getting some more respect and getting to the line, I think that's when he starts to become. I mean, he had just shy of 20 points this year. So some more opportunities at the charity stripe could do wonders for the Wonder Kid. You wax poetic now on Franz Wagner, if you would, because I just love to hear it.
I don't know if I have anything to add to what you say. The thing I'll be watching for with him that I think really would sort of take him to another echelon of player, when you're kind of looking at what he's doing on the ball, and he can do stuff in the lane, but he seems to get a little hesitant when he sees multiple bodies coming at him, and then he'll be prone to turnovers, or he thinks he's faster than the guy or guys who are in front of him, but then realizes he's not, and that results in a turnover or not the best decision. And so I don't even know if I'm looking for, is it more poise? Is it tightening up some of the handles in traffic? But we've also seen him do okay in that scenario. I think, and not to step on the toes of what I said with Paolo, he probably has another gear as a passer here because of some of the possessions he's left on the table. We're just watching him where it feels like, okay, I wish he was just being more decisive or understood his matchup better, or the defense that was coming at him better. Again, he was just a sophomore. I expect him to get better at that. And the other thing, you'll hear me say it probably 10 more times this podcast, as the spacing around him improves, I think some of this stuff takes care of itself. But for some of this on-ball usage he was saddled with, I would like to see the turnover rate, specifically in pick and roll scenarios. I think he was at like 17+%. He turned the ball over in pick and rolls last year. That's just a little high for the caliber of player and even passer to me that he is. And so that's what I'm going to be sort of looking at it. Is like, maybe that's too like nitty gritty of like, does it really take his game to the next level or something? But he's already done so much that it's time to start probably nitpicking.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I'd be interested to dive a little bit more into those pick and roll numbers and see when in the season they came, because the beginning of our season when we were 5-20, Markelle Fultz was down, Cole Anthony was down for a little bit, Jalen Suggs was nicked up. We were running Point Franz in Orlando, so that was trial by fire for him, and he had a lot of turnovers early in the year. So that may skew some of his season-long numbers, but I think it was a great learning opportunity for him. He'll probably never be in that situation again where he's running point. I hope not. Again, that would be,
no, you don't want him to be like, no, you want him to be like a secondary, tertiary type of playmaker. That's what you actually want him to do.
And he got the trial by fire, as I said, being that primary ball handler. And I think it only made him better at the role that he's suited for, which is that secondary ball handler, playmaker, coming out of coming around on a pick and roll. And so that I'm excited. I'm so ecstatic to have these two guys. I mean, we got the forward positions locked up for years to come, hopefully here in Orlando, and they just complement each other so very well. So we love the Wonder Kid. It's having him and Moritz too is something very unique to having the brothers together. Moritz also got a contract this offseason with a little bit of a Franz bump, we think, here in the Magic community. He got a little bit of that Franz bump on his in his.
He's got that Antetokounmpo influence now. That's how good Franz Wagner is.
Yes,
although
exactly.
To be fair, and I'm not taking shots at Thanasis here, like Mo Wagner played like a real role for Orlando last year. Too. It's like so
they're not really comparable. That's a very accurate point. Yes.
So I am a Jalen Suggs believer. So I'm going to preface it with this. So don't let that don't let my feelings affect what you're going to say. Where are you at with Jalen Suggs?
I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, this is Homer behavior here that you're getting, ladies and gentlemen. But what else am I to do? I think Jalen Suggs came into the league with superior expectations. We all thought he was going to be the franchise guy now, and then all of a sudden, this guy Franz Wagner, who on draft night we're kind of just like scratching our heads, like who the hell is a Franz Wagner? And Jalen had a very irky jerky start. I think the way that he plays has been a double-edged sword for him in the NBA. What makes him so great is he's got that dog in him. He has one gear. It's 100,000%. He just goes hard all the time. But the other side of that coin was that he was getting nicked up everywhere all the time. I think this, and I believe I'm correct on this. This is his first healthy offseason. He got injured in the summer league, I believe, his first year. He got a thumb that hampered him into the beginning of his year, and then he got nicked up a couple other times, going hard to the hole. And last year, he had ankle surgery. So this is his first fully healthy year, and we've seen the effective field goal percentage, the 2-point shooting, the 3-point shooting, they all went up significantly. He's top 10%.
0.2% from three over his final 30 games, I think. Like that's a real number.
I have that statistic on my screen, Dan. So
do you? Okay.
I do. Yes. I'm 3.6 attempts per game. I'll let you know. So we're taking heart in that. The shot looks great. Like it's well balanced. It always looked pretty damn good. So I have faith in the shot. And as you said, again, 37.5% I had. You said 38. We'll go with that one because it's higher over his last 30 games. Small sample size, but the shot looks there. And he hit some big shots. I mean, he hit a couple game winners last year. So, again, top 10% amongst guards in steal percentage, block percentage, offensive rebounding percentage. So, he's a dog. He's a fighter. He's a competitor. He's my choice to be our starting two guard next year. I think he usurps. I don't even think that's hot. I think he usurps Gary Harris as the two guard. And again, I don't even think that's hot because he was in our ending lineups, which are far more important than your starting lineups. He was in the ending lineups for Coach Mosley at the end of the year. And when Jalen excelled those last 30 games, those last 40 games, second half of the season, that's when our whole team was getting healthy and he was settling into a role. We've learned that Jalen Suggs, I think he's not a point guard in the NBA.
No,
he's a secondary ball handler. He's a shooting guard. If you get him downhill to the hoop, that's what we want. That's great. But he showed some really high upside, in my opinion, from beyond the arc. And again, first healthy offseason, I am really, really excited to see the version of Jalen Suggs that we see this year. I think you're absolutely onto something, Dan.
Yeah, and I think they've kind of gradually just found the role and the personnel around him, even though it's not perfect from a spacing perspective, it's going to force him into basically being this 3-and-D type of player for the most part, who can do a little bit on the ball, but you don't want to see too much of it, maybe in certain units. The starting question with him is interesting just because I guess getting him away from Anthony Black might make a lot of sense. Until having Gary Harris come off the bench. Wow. We're going to get into the rotations. That's a good conundrum to have. I didn't bill him as a starter. I assume they would just go to Harris there. I'm hoping the 3-point volume ticks up, but I think the thing that really he does not receive enough credit for because we focus so much on offense, it's not just that he's good defensively, it's that he's good defensively while taking on these assignments that can make you look bad defensively. Where it's like, hey, you go chase Donovan Mitchell or you go chase Tyrese Halliburton, and like he's handling those types of assignments. And I think that's a really big deal. And so I'm hoping that as he finds more of an offensive niche, that this will help him. The ship is probably sailed on will he be this megastar? We know Franz Wagner is better, but I look at him and I see the outline of just a really impactful NBA player. And I think it's just a matter of finding that happy medium on offense, not just with his usage and function, but of how that meshes with the personnel that's around him. And I don't know if they found that balance yet, but it does seem like they at least understand what direction they need to head in with him. Excuse me.
No, I think you're right. He's kind of finally found his spot. He's maybe not the guy that us Orlando Magic fans thought he was going to be on draft night, but he could still be kind of like, an all defensive player, a borderline not. I'm not. I mean, yeah, that's too rich. I was gonna say borderline all-star. That might be too rich. But what I love about this in a twisted way, and his kind of sporadic up and down injury history so far is, I'm hoping, knock on wood, I got wood here, he's going to stay healthy. And then he's going into his second contract. And then you get more of a bargain rate on a Jalen Suggs go on his second deal because he had kind of a stop and start first contract. And all of a sudden he's blossoming in his second contract because that's what you need. Because Paolo and Franz are going to be max player guys. So you need to have some guys that are on some more reasonable deals that also flourish and become key pieces. And I'm hoping Jalen Suggs can continue to be a well-kept secret, and that not too many folks around the league get onto him here in this season, because then he's going to be up for an extension. And I hope to heck we extend him on what might be a team-friendly deal, and that could be huge for the team construction moving into year 3, 4, 5, 6 of this new generation of the Orlando Magic.
Now, I know the pecking order ended up this way in part because of injuries with the roster, including basically to all three of these guys, I think. Like, what is the hierarchy when you're looking at allocating minutes to Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, and Jalen Suggs right now? Because Jalen Suggs was at the bottom of that last year. I know he closed some important games, but he was third in minutes per game among them. I think I'm just curious as your thoughts what that hierarchy looks like now.
I think that Jalen Suggs will likely play more minutes per game than Cole this year, and Markelle plays the most out of the lot. I believe that much in Jalen Suggs' ascension. I just think he has more. He's got a larger skill set, and he brings more winning assets to the team than Cole Anthony, who we love. I mean, we absolutely love Cole Anthony in Orlando. He's the personality of the team and can really light it up, be a microwave scorer. He's a great sixth man.
Iconic interview.
What's that?
Iconic interview.
Exactly. We need that guy. Like, get that guy on a hot mic immediately. I don't know why he's not mic'd up for every freaking game. But
we need like an uncensored like stream of where like you can hear everything that's said on the mic, though, because I always wonder. I want to know what they're cutting out.
Well, do you remember that Jalen Suggs was on a hot mic? I don't know if it was last season or 2 seasons ago, and he dropped the MRFer. He said, I think it was his game winner and against the Bulls, and Moritz, he's like, yeah, man, Moritz in the locker. He came up to me. Can I swear?
Yeah, go ahead.
He's like, he came up to me. He says, "You're a bad motherfucker," and he said that on TV. And Dante Markatelli, who was interviewing him, was like, he kind of he didn't know what to do and just kept it moving. So that would be good for our team, I think. Jalen Suggs, though, I think we see a big ascension from him. I do think he usurps Cole Anthony in terms of minutes per game, and really settles in as long as you can have consistency. So the big bugaboo for us has been injuries. So knock on wood, we have some consistency this year, and that's where Jalen Suggs has thrived.
Now, this is a little bit more complex than the question is going to make it seem, because Anthony Black and even Gary Harris can play some wing minutes. But is Cole Anthony, when you're kind of looking at, okay, we have Fultz, we have Gary Harris, who can actually play wing minutes, we have Anthony Black now, we are invested in Jalen Suggs. So is he the one that's most likely to get squeezed when it comes to minutes, or is it going to be, Black's a rookie, and there's also Gary Harris might not be sort of this long-term piece.
Right.
But I look at it from if you're trying to win games perspective, it almost feels like Cole Anthony might be the guy that gets squeezed a little bit here.
Yeah, it's tough because, prior to drafting Anthony Black, Cole Anthony was your second most proficient ball handler, the guy that you trusted with the offense outside of Markelle Fultz. So, I mean, he completely ran that second unit. Then Franz would come on and do some of the ball handling responsibilities. But you're right. Now that you have Anthony Black, you feel you have a capable guy to run your second unit. Cole Anthony's skill set, while we need shooting desperately, so I'm not happy to let a proficient ball handler and a guy who can run your offense and one of our better shooters walk out the door. But if he doesn't, where are the minutes coming from? It has to come from somewhere.
I can only think of Gary Harris.
Right.
He gets injured. He's been injured a fair amount throughout his career.
So there's that. Like, and our point guard room has been nicked up quite a bit, and we don't want to bank on injuries, but I think we've been talking about this in the Magic community for, it seems like every year for the last few years, but Gary Harris being traded at the trade deadline or being moved, it's like that has been the piece that we're like, yeah, we're going to move him and get something. That happens every year. It feels the most real now, though, because we really do have this log jam coming to a head, as you've been remarking on, and we'll see what happens. I'm really interested to see what happens with Cole. I think it's going to break people's hearts, or Magic fans' hearts, to see him leave. So we're hoping he comes back, but if he does, where are the minutes? It's something's got to give, Dan. Something's got to give.
So, to that end, who's more likely to get an extension before the season starts, Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz?
Well,
what's interesting is I think when you're looking at the importance of, this is from my perspective of it, when you're looking at the importance of the players, you might assume that's Markelle Fultz.
Right.
But in my head, when you're looking at the numbers they might be willing to accept,
right.
Cole Anthony might be willing to take a much team-friendlier number right now than Markelle Fultz, because I think of how high Fultz's stock has kind of ascended over the past couple of years.
No, that's a fair point. I wrote an article about this on OrlandoMagicDaily.com, and my plea to the front office was just try to extend these guys, both of them, as soon as possible, so you can hopefully get a team-friendly deal. Because what I'm really worried about is, as you said, the ascension of Markelle Fultz. He goes out there and then is all of a sudden commanding like mid to high 20s instead of low 20s if he has a breakout year this year and someone's looking for a point guard and believes it can be him. So that's the danger. They've both been nicked up a little bit, especially Markelle Fultz. He's had very few healthy seasons, so I understand if the front office isn't running to get these guys extended, especially if they've already had conversations and the players' parties aren't amenable to a more team-friendly deal, and they're trying to play hardball, which you never blame them for trying to get their guy money. But our front office has worked some wonders with Wendell Carter, who I think we're going to talk about in a moment. So, I'm just crossing everything I have. I'm sleeping with the spoon under the pillow. I'm doing it all. I'm putting the underwear in the freezer, hoping that, Jeff Weltman can work his magic again and get these guys extended. If you're going to ask me, I have to choose. I mean, Markelle Fultz is more important to this team. So it would be surprising to me if Cole Anthony gets extended first. But like you said, it could be a more easily digestible number. And so I wouldn't be shocked, but I would be surprised if it was Cole Anthony first. I think Fultz is the number one priority here.
Is there a version where they sort of just kick the can on both of them and neither gets an extension? They want to roll their flexibility into next summer and go from there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, that's a possibility, but that's a danger. That's a scary scenario for me, because I think Cole's been in the lab. You all see him. He's been working on his game. If he continues to shoot, continue to improve his 3-point shooting, that's going to be a very valuable asset. We'll see, though. It might be actually better in a way with the new CBA, and I think these contracts are getting tamped down a little bit as teams realize they have to be a little bit more clever with what they can do in terms of signing, going over the cap, and especially now over the second apron. So maybe teams are going to be a little bit more reticent to try to go out and outbid restricted free agents, because they both will have that denotion, I believe. I know.
Yeah,
Cole
that's always been, and I've never understood it, especially now, because I think you only have 36 hours where your cap space is tied up, and you have 36 hours to match. They lowered it, so it's just like, I'm a big fan of, well, why did no one go and offer Austin Reeves the $100 million? If the Lakers match, you've tied up your cap space for 36 hours, whatever it is, 48 hours, and what move did you miss out on? Right. And so there is a danger. The Lakers,
and we all love that.
There is a danger there, but at least if you're the Magic, if you let Cole Anthony roll in a restricted free agency, you have the right to match anything. Markelle Fultz is a dicier proposition, because if he decides he wants to leave, he can just leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I would say he's a higher extension priority as well.
I don't have a question about Wendell Carter Jr. really. I do. Okay. Not a stylistic one, but he's a podcast favorite of Grant and I. He also will be, for anyone who cares. This is how a steal of a contract he is. He's going to be making 9.6% of the salary cap this year. 9.6% for a starting center who is in that borderline all-star center tier on this podcast anyway.
Wow. I love it.
he considered to you or the Magic community, if you want to go about it that way, the third most important, like long-term core player on this team?
When you frame it as long-term, maybe. I have Markelle Fultz as my third most important player just by virtue of how the team turned around when he came back. And Wendell Carter Jr. was playing during that 5-20 stretch. So in terms of importance and impact on winning, right now I would have Markelle above that. But there's a great argument for Wendell. And the thing that about the contract that makes it even better, Dan, is it's a descending contract. So as the salary cap is going up, his contract's going down. In 25-26, when this contract is over, I think it's $10 million. So
yeah, he will be. Oh my God, I'm losing my voice again. I apologize to everyone. I'm coming out I'm on the good end of a allergy cold / lost my voice stretch. He's going to be 6.9.5% of the salary cap in his final year. That's projected. That number could actually get more favorable for the Magic because the cap could increase by a higher rate that year.
Right.
So
true. Very good point. So, I mean, and that's the last year of Paulo's rookie deal as well. Franz would, already be signed. He's so solid for us. I mean, he's smart. He's very positionally. He's a positionally great defender. He uses his body really well. He's a good defender and an underrated passer. That's kind of been a theme with this team. We love to share the rock. I love taking his over on assists. It's one of my favorite gambling things to do. I feast on that. He 15-9, and he has done a tremendous job of extending to the 3-point line. I mean, 35.5% from three this year. On a number, I don't know how many attempts. I gotta get that up, but
he was last year. He was at almost 4 attempts a game. You'll take that from your center
for a center. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, on a team that needs spacing, that seems like a valuable asset. He struggles sometimes. He's a good defensive rebounder. He's not a rim protector. He's not getting you offensive boards. He's not a superior rebounder. At nine rebounds from your center isn't great, but he's boxing out the big bodies, and Paolo's coming in and getting them, or even little Cole Anthony comes in and gets more rebounds than a guard his size should. But the only knock and I guess hesitation I have at Wendell is he's only played above 60 games once, and it was 61 or 62 2 years ago. So he's been perpetually injured, whether he's got the corner, he's always, got stuff in his eye or what have you. He has to sit, 20 games, a quarter of the season for his entire career. And some of his years he's, been out for more games than that. So I think that's why we were able to get him on the favorable contract. For him, it was a great move. Hey, I can generational wealth. Now this is my second contract. Fantastic. And we got it on a steal. I think that's probably going to be the best contract in the league in 2025, if it's not already. He's a great piece. I hesitate sometimes when he has to defend those superior centers, especially the 7-footers. He struggles to rebound the ball, and that's something as a team that we struggle with. And a lot of the blame rests with your center on that, rests with Wendell Carter. But he facilitates offense. I mean, he's a lot of times in the pick and roll at the elbow, handing off the ball, sets fantastic screens. He definitely is a key cog to the offense and our defense. Love to have him. He says all the right stuff. So I'm super high on him. Why are you so high? It seems like you're even higher on him than I am. Can give me more Wendell Carter Jr. propaganda, please, Dan.
I appreciate defensive malleability, especially in bigs. And so while he's not that traditional rim protector, the fact that he can cover up for so many different things if you need him to, because he can be mobile on the perimeter and he's going to make the right decision, I would say 97% of the time. I also think they don't use him like in the post as much because they don't need to. And I think that's when you look at kind of how he started, and I know there was like some Jim Boylan years there that really clouded some shit up and why the Bulls ended up moving him in the first place, I'm sure. But like, just when you're looking at his screening, when you're looking at some of the shots that he can hit, not just like from three, but like this is someone who, he can hit the turnarounds if you need him to, but he's also going to cut. He's going to move without the ball, whether he's actually connecting on screens or slipping screens. And so to be that plug and play while also stretching the floor, but then your defensive motor and execution doesn't seem ever tied to your offensive usage. That's just like, that's so rare. And I mean, we kind of just talked about it. We make jokes, but you have a starting center who's making under 10% of the salary cap. Like, I'm just going to fall in love with that as like the team perspective. I wish Wendell Carter Jr. for him, I wish he was making a lot more money. But from the Magic perspective, he's just so incredibly valuable. And I think he just lets you do a lot of different things where it's okay. Paolo's not the best shooter right now. Like the fact that your center is an above average shooter for his position, when you kind of filter out like the actual shot types, he's at over 38% from three last year on just straight catch and shoot, 0 dribble threes. That's that's a huge asset, and it opens up the floor. And I think he's actually, he'll be even more dangerous now if you're playing him routinely with another, other than Franz Wagner, like another higher end shooter where it's, is he getting minutes with Jett Howard? Is he getting minutes with Joe Ingles? Or Paolo's shooting 36% from three. Like that just helps out Wendell Carter Jr. a ton as well, because it gives him more things that he can do then after he's setting screens, if he has more room to operate in the lane. So he's become this good and versatile offensively, operating within like a finite amount of space in the half court. I get what you're saying, and I will always lean towards the guards as well, where it's, Markelle Fultz is going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to be making more decisions. So I understand that aspect, but he's just everything, just from the contract to the versatility to the plug and playness to what he's able to do on offense, defense. He's one of my favorite players in the league. And I think he's probably one of the most underrated players in the league right now, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, he's just like such a solid guy. I want more big man shit from him, but that's not necessarily who he is. The versatility is the other side of that coin. So the switchability, which Coach Mosley loves, you've got like all these 6'10" guys. Paolo, Franz, they're all like 6'10", and they all can switch. Now with Paolo playing some 5, it'll be interesting to see now how he and Wendell continue to even work better together now that Paolo's gotten a little bit more insight into the life of a big man.
Yeah.
He can appreciate Wendell a little bit more.
Tips. Yeah, he'll be coming in. So, if at all, where do Jonathan Isaac and Chuma Okeke factor into the longer-term outlook of this team?
Next question. No.
All right, let's move on. No. You ready to talk about Caleb?
That was it. No, yeah, right. That's what's juicy next. Not really. Chuma has been the tragic story of the Orlando Magic. We've been waxing poetic about many of the accolades and the rising stars that we have on this team. Chuma's he's the sad story. He came in, in those weird years before, right when Vooch was traded, he kind of got a lot more on-ball looks. He was dunking on Anthony Davis. He was shooting the ball well from beyond the arc. And like, okay, this is good. We got a wing here. He looked like the 3-and-D wing that guys salivate over.
At one point was just like absolutely bonkers.
And he's still he's still a great defender, great on-ball defender. But we've got a lot of really good defenders now, a lot of really versatile defenders. And so he can't really hang his hat on there. And his shooting has gotten worse every single year. It's going in the wrong way. And I think that probably spells the end for Chuma Okeke, especially with Joe Ingles coming in, playing like the same position that he does. Chuma was supposed to be like the backup for Paolo and Franz, soaking up those minutes. Moritz kind of beat him out. Now we're bringing in Joe Ingles. Now we're bringing in Jett Howard. All these guys got to get minutes. I don't see where it happens for Chuma unless, he lights the world on fire during camp. And to talk about Jonathan Isaac, I have a policy on Court Cousins, Dan, where I don't talk about injured players. And technically he's not injured right now, but because of that policy, we haven't talked about Jonathan Isaac in a long time. I mean, Franz has played more games than Jonathan Isaac in Jonathan Isaac's 7-year career. So he's the ultimate what if. He's the ultimate X factor in this whole amazing hodgepodge that we're putting together right now in Orlando. When he was in 1920, before he went down, he was blocking Embiid. Like he was the Giannis stopper. Like he was defending these guys better than anyone in the league, in our opinion. And you just saw, wow, this could be a defensive player of the year candidate. This guy could be a cornerstone of the Orlando Magic. Before we had Paolo and Franz, I'm like, this is our star. And it's just, one knee, then the other knee, then the hamstring. Came back for last year. He was on a minutes restricted, playing like 10, 12 minutes, and he got injured again. So it's It's tough, man, and he's been more active off the court than on the court, which is a frustration to me because I love ball and I want to see the young man play because he's so dang talented and could help this team. But I just can't as a responsible content creator, Dan. I just can't consider him in even a hypothetical situation. But man, it would be so good.
I think you're looking at it the smart way with Isaac. It's if he can contribute, right, that's a huge bonus. But there's also just like, I won't say they've outgrown him, but they're definitely just set up to move on from him. Like they don't need him. Right. And they don't even need what was the best version of him at one point, because I have no idea where he would fit offensively on this team right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Well, he showed, like, he did show some nice flashes of stuff, turnaround, some post work. He was shooting pretty well from beyond the arc, but yeah, you can't consider him as a responsible Magic fan. And the best thing that he might be for us right now is a trade chip for someone who's looking to dump salary and maybe get under the luxury tax or under the second apron. That's $17 million, and I think he has one more year left after this, or is he on his last year? That's attractive. That's attractive to some teams, and that might be the best asset he brings to the Orlando Magic.
When you're sort of looking at Harris or Caleb Houston, guys who played really, like
Kevon Harris, to be clear, not Gary Harris.
Oh yeah, sorry, Kevon Harris. That's my bad. And so they come in, injuries, they played some bigger roles than I think people expected them last year.
Yeah.
They were both very interesting from the, again, limited amount that I saw of them. Kevon Harris, excuse me, not Gary Harris, Chaos King.
Yes.
And I really like Caleb Houston, holy defensive versatility there. Do either of these guys factor in this season, or is the rotation at full strength outgrowing them a little bit?
I think it would be tough for them to factor in, Dan, with everyone at full strength. If they're in there, something might have gone wrong. Jett Howard is struggling, AB is struggling, something like that is happening. And I think you're more likely to see Kevon play this year because Mosley just loves him. He's tenacious on defense, and he's much like Jalen Suggs. He's got one gear. It's just all out. And I love that Chaos King. That's exactly what he is. Caleb, while switchable, didn't show much besides being kind of a spot up shooter. I don't know where he fits. We'll see. I think this is the last year that he's guaranteed on the contract. So I kind of have a feeling he just fades off into the sunset or hopefully gets a shot on another team. But I don't see either of those guys factoring in at all.
Do you have another concern? We've talked a lot about the spacing, and I do believe that's still in the half court the biggest concern. Is there another concern coming out of the offseason when you look at this roster that you still have?
I mean, we've talked about it, shooting. Which is spacing. Like, where's it going to come from? We drafted Anthony Black, as we've talked about already. That's my biggest concern. That's my biggest concern. I'm also, interested to see how the team fares in hopefully meaningful basketball time too. We're hoping in Orlando to see some playoff basketball, and we love this team in the regular season, but there are guys, there are teams that are regular season superstars, Donovan Mitchell, and that when they get to the playoff, I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. That was an unnecessary shade, Kyle. Bad, Kyle. Where it's a different game. It's a different game. And when teams can game plan, I would love to see this team in a series, because that's when our weaknesses would get exposed. That's when we can figure out really where we need to move in terms of the direction of the team. Hey, I'm optimistic about how we'll perform. You see Franz Wagner going up against the USA and dropping 22. That's a guy with ice in his veins. When you've got guys like that have done it already on the international scale, we feel good about it, but it's still an untested product. It's still a theory right now, Dan. So that's the only thing I'm skeptical about, and I'd like to see moving into this year.
I think the one thing, and this isn't a concern, I would like to see them be even more aggressive to get going in the open floor and in transition, especially in sometimes it felt like last year that they were more focused on I don't want to say speed necessarily, but being faster in situations where teams wouldn't expect them to be faster, where it's okay, after a made shot, they're going to try and get into their offense a lot quicker. But then if they force a turnover or grab a rebound, it felt like they should be getting into their offense a lot quicker than they were in those situations. So I guess to like boil it down even further, they're fine after their defending makes. I want to see them get faster after they're forcing turnovers or grabbing live rebounds. I think there's room for them collectively to grow there. And I'm not saying I'm worried they won't. No. I'm just curious what they have the personnel to do it, but they also haven't. I mean, you added 80-year-old Joe Ingles, and we don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Black. Like, they didn't necessarily add the personnel that's going to make them want to change the way they play in those situations. It's going to have to happen, them recognizing like, oh, this personnel that we already have in place can do that.
Yeah, I think I might disagree slightly. I think we saw more of that as the season went on, especially with Markelle coming back. I mean, he pushes the ball. And with Franz and Paolo, though, you are right, and there's more room to grow. You've got guys that can, off the rebound, push the ball immediately. So it's a strength that I also would like to see us lean into a little bit more and try to catch some teams on their back foot, continue to get to the line. That's the opportunity where Paolo ticks those, 7.4 up to 9 a game, and Franz continues to get to the line. Those are the opportunities, and I like where your head's at with that one, Dan.
So after they started 5-20, which you've mentioned a couple of times now, did you know the Magic started 5-20? For anyone who's listening to this podcast, I'm sure everyone's told you. They go 29-24 before they close the season on a 4-game losing streak. During that time, they were 6th in points allowed per possession. Aside from just the superior size that they have, what is something that when you watch that really stands out about their defense, whether it's a statistical aspect or just something you're noticing schematically or with certain players or lineups on the floor, whatever?
We've kind of danced around it talking about each and every player, but it's the switchability. I mean, even Wendell Carter to Markelle Fultz in that starting lineup, Jalen Suggs, Franz, Paolo, all of those guys are capable of switching on to anyone. Maybe not for extended periods of time if you got Wendell on a 1, but he's done it before. So the switchability is superior. And like you said, Jeff Weltman has loved drafting these guys with these huge wingspans. Just positionless basketball is something that has been thrown at us ad nauseum by our front office. And you see the benefit when Coach Mosley goes to the zone. Us Magic fans were pulling our hair out in the beginning of the year when our zone was getting destroyed. But as we started to get more consistency, you started to really see it pay off in big moments where we'd be able to stem the tide of an offensive run by going to that zone. I think it really gave some teams fits we can not only play man-to-man and switch, but we can also now have a reliable zone defense that was coming together as we were getting to the end of the season. So I'm excited to see that continue to grow and develop as we move into 23-24 here.
I'm excited too, and I need to get data on like the specifics of switching possessions, specifically with Paolo Banchero, just to continue that Paolo Banchero defensive agenda. Because I just feel like from times when I watched him where it's like, oh, that was a possession where he just capably guarded Jason Tatum, or oh, did he just force the ball out of Kevin Durant's hands type stuff? Right. That's something I would love to see more data on. Are you ready though for the cookie cutter portion of these look ahead podcasts?
I will. I'm the cookie monster, baby. Let's go.
What does the 10-man rotation look like to you if you're building it out?
Okay. All right. So let's bring up the depth chart. So for me, my starting 5 is going to be Markelle, Jalen Suggs.
Love it.
Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. Let's see. Coming off the bench, then we're going to probably have maybe Franz and Jalen coming off at similar times. I would imagine then this is tough because where does Gary Harris fit? That's what I'm struggling with most right now in my mind.
I think just like he is the actual person on this team, I guess aside from Franz, that it's like finished 3-and-D. Like that's just someone like he is 3-and-D. You can't call Jalen Suggs that just yet. No. So you have to
play him. He's great at what he does. I mean, and
he also shot like an astronomical percentage on drives last year. That part of his game had sort of fallen off a couple years ago, and it came back last year.
No, and I think as Magic fans, we want to see him shooting more. I love me some Gary Harris, so he's got to be in that. I think he's coming in for Jalen Suggs. They're kind of swapping responsibilities this year. coming in for Franz Wagner, is that when you put in Anthony Black at defending like the 2 or 3? Is he big enough? Can he do that? Probably against most teams he could defend a 3. I think it will be a night-to-night basis. Then coming in for Markelle, you're going to have Cole. So he and Anthony Black will kind of go back and forth in terms of running the offense. And this is where it gets weird, man. Like,
so there would be, that's 8 locks.
That's
then,
8.
and I think I'd
That's
agree with
8.
you. Yeah, because you
so,
have the starting 5: Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black.
right.
So that's 8. Yeah, and I would agree with you on all those locks.
And you've got to play your 11th overall draft pick, right? You got to give him a runway, I would assume, in Jett Howard. So
and then it's like don't you kind of have to play Mo Wagner unless you are leaning into Paolo all the way at backup 5 at this point,
right?
Like,
so I guess
so that would be Joe Ingles.
That would be my 10.
Yeah.
So then where the hell is Joe Ingles?
He's getting paid $11 million to be the 11th man in your book.
To wave the towel, sign me up. Sign me up. It's there's gonna be, it's fun to do the 10-man, but we're gonna be 12, 13.
They're a regular season team that's gonna mix shit up, but it'll be interesting if they made the playoffs.
Right.
What their 8-man rotation would be. Maybe it's just we outline the 8 locks, but it's like there's not a lot of. Like, they'd be pretty big in the starting 5, but then your size kind of starts to drop off if you have both Gary Harris and Cole Anthony coming off the bench.
Right. And the guy we haven't talked about at all, but I like a lot, is Goga Bitadze.
You like Goga?
I love Goga. I mean, he was our best offensive rebounder, and that's I've talked to Seth Partnow. His book, offensive rebounding is how you determine who's a good rebounder. And he's the only guy that was really doing that. As a 7-footer, he was also doing a pretty good job being vertical. So if we're playing a team that has like a true center, Moritz can't really handle it. Sometimes Wendell struggles to get rebounds against those guys. Goga's our only answer. So, I think he gets some minutes somewhere too. And
what's the bigger wild card?
Yeah.
Goga's defense in space or Jonathan Isaac's availability?
It's gotta be. That's the bigger wild card is Jonathan Isaac. That's for anything, but Goga can get on roller skates. Certainly, you gotta keep the man in the paint.
What would be, and this will be to some extent, matchup dependent. But what would be your preferred closing unit for this team? Is it just the starting lineup that you would roll out, or do you see any potential for futzing and fiddling with any of the spots?
I don't think so. What Coach Mosley did a great job of last year, and I think he'll continue to do so, is rewarding the hot hand. Cole Anthony, if he gets hot, he knows he can play into the fourth quarter. But he's got to be hot because he can be a liability on defense at times. But so I think the 5 that I outline as starters is my finishing unit as well: Markelle, Jalen, Paolo, Franz, and Wendell. If on day 1 we see Gary Harris in the starting lineup, I would still imagine that Jalen would be finishing the game.
Yeah, and it seems like there's the most potential for futzing and fiddling just in the backcourt. And I think at this point, I would even go as far as to say that there are just 4 locks because you need Markelle Fultz's ball handling and playmaking. But like if Paolo and or Franz makes this leap as a passer, you could, in theory, if you're looking to skew more offense or space, like you get really wild with who you're throwing out in the backcourt, then would give you more options. But it does feel like there's 4 locks for what would be their most used closing unit. That's Fultz, Wendell, Paolo, and Franz. And I would think that the 5th spot you mentioned could be Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs. Could we see some Gary Harris depending on the matchup?
Maybe.
It would be interesting. He can't really get played off the floor, but like, would you ever see a Paolo at the 5 closing unit? But that leads into, I think, this question.
Yeah.
Is there a weirdo, quirky, unconventional, yet to be seen lineup that you want to see them try this year?
Well, yeah, let's run what we ran against New Zealand there. Let's put Paolo at the 5. Let's put the most possible shooting that we can around Paolo Banchero. And I think that you do that with him at the 5, because then you can bring Ingles at the 4. You got a 40% 3-point shooter. We could have a Franz at the 3, I guess, and then give me some Gary Harris and like some Cole Anthony and run the offense more through Paolo and Franz. I mean, that's maybe sacrilegious to my boy Markelle Fultz, but if we're throwing out some wacky stuff, let's try to flip the script, Orlando Magic. We were a team that could not shoot the 3 ball at all last year. Let's try to surround Paolo with as much 3-point shooting as we possibly can. but I don't know if we're actually going to see that. Now I'm really putting on the glasses. I'm living in La La Land.
I would love to see, and to be honest, this team's really not fun when it comes to making weirdo lineups because I think so many of the lineups you can just justify as being sensible. Any of the combinations that you just put out there. Just give me Paolo plus all wings. And it's like, let's just throw Franz on there, Anthony Black, Jett Howard, and then the other one is Joe Ingles just for the shooting. So it's like Paolo and those four, or Jalen Suggs. Even I wouldn't mind like having him in that scenario. So Paolo plus, I'll call them wings. Paolo plus a bunch of wings is what I want to say.
It's nothing compared to the wingspan lineup of last year that people wanted, which was like Bull, Jonathan Isaac, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, the super huge lineup. Man, Bull.
He's in Phoenix now, where they will soon learn that he doesn't play much or any defense.
I just love the memes coming out when he signed there of like their big three plus Bull. Like, yes, this is the missing piece. It's like Phoenix fans.
He's become such a phenomenon that like there will be like when they come out with the Photoshop graphics before they're in the jersey, like there were those graphics of Bull in a Suns jersey. Someone took the time to Photoshop Bull in a Suns jersey. Okay, this is the big one. They're over under as we record this on Friday night, September 8th, 36.5. Are you taking the over or the under, and where do you see them stacking up in the larger context of the Eastern Conference?
Thermonuclear MRFers. Right now, look at me. I need you to take as much money responsibly as you can right now and run, don't walk, and put it on the over. I myself did that. I wouldn't give you advice that I wouldn't live by. I think I put money on over, and then I put money on like over 40. I may have even dabbled with over 45. I don't think that's like a crazy reach when you look at, as you said, that spurt where we went 29 and 24, 29 and 25. If you extrapolate that across the whole season, I think that's good for like the 7th seed last year, something around those lines. So I think we're coming in very underrated with that 36.5 because that would still be a losing season. And I do not see the Magic being under 500. I expect us to be over 500. And I say run, don't walk. Dan, tell me you're with me.
I don't reveal it because we do our over-under podcast separately. And I've decided this year that I won't reveal mine because then they're all spoiled when Grant and I go to record it.
Fair.
Yours will be recorded. I have receipts for every guest, so yours will be recorded. I will say this does give me, and there's a big reason why, this gives me last year's Sacramento Kings vibes where theirs came out and it was like 35 or something stupid. It was like, oh, no, that's way too low.
Yes.
And then I think what helps the Magic is no one got a lot better in the East this summer. I think, and the more instructive exercise to go through is, okay, well, what are the teams that we are prepared at this moment are going to be better than the Magic? There's the Bucks. There's the Celtics, which it will be the Celtics, but I want to make it clear I'm so low on the Kristaps Porzingis acquisition. It's not even funny.
I didn't love that either, man.
There's the Cavs. And then I'm not saying that they are going to be 4th in the East, but like that's where the locks run out because okay, the Knicks, fine, maybe. But the Heat, what's happening with Damian Lillard? They lost 2 mission critical guys this offseason if they don't have if they get Dame, sure, the Heat. What the fuck is going on in Philly? I have no idea.
Yeah, that could be a dumpster fire fast.
You can't count on them. So there are these other teams like what's going to happen with Atlanta? What's going on in Chicago and Toronto? There are
Pacers I like. Yeah.
But that's sort of my point. Is that the East is so wide open.
Definitely.
It benefits a team like the Magic, I think. Whereas a team like the Heat, I don't think it benefits them as much, especially if they don't have Dame. But a team like the Magic, a team like the Pacers, you're looking for someone who could run off more wins than you're expecting. So that is my not revealing my pick for the Magic, but those are my thoughts on Orlando's over-under. I think there are just 3 teams that are so far above the rest of the East, and that everyone else, with the exception of Washington, who is trying to suck, and kudos to them for doing so,
they're doing great.
That could end up being jumbled together.
100%, man. The Brooklyn Nets were 6. They're going to tumble. Like, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a good regular season team. They'll probably be up there, but the 76ers.
I flirted, and I won't reveal this, but I flirted with picking them to come out of the East this year. I'm like, I'm drinking all the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I love me some Evan Mobley, man. The
He is
guy's
going to be so good. And people
Yeah.
who are just like using the playoff series to discredit a sophomore is like, let's chill.
Make sure you go watch the Hardwood Knocks video on Evan Mobley. I saw that was posted the other day.
You know, it's funny you made that mistake because we get
I know,
tagged
I'm
all the
sorry.
time in Hard Knocks stuff
sorry.
on Twitter because people think like that, like that's the handle of Hard Knocks. Is there anything pertaining to this roster I didn't ask you about you think we need to discuss after 90 minutes that we did not hit?
Woo! No, I got to talk about my Gogo Bitatse, so I think I'm happy, Dan. I just got to tell the people it's a good time right now. It's all right. You're not going to be a bandwagoner if you come right now. The water is warm. It's before everyone's on board. So just come on board. We're fine being your B team, okay? We don't need to be your A team out there, ladies and gentlemen. But just, give us some eyeballs once in a while. We're a great league pass team. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, they're absolutely gonna be a fun league pass team, and you can show your membership aboard the Magic bandwagon by hanging a random era jersey behind you whenever you're podcasting. That's how we'll know. Kyle, can you just tell all our listeners where they can find you and all the work that you're putting out?
Absolutely. Another great way to show your Orlando Magic fandom is to come on over to Court Cousins. Come check us out. Me and my cousin, the Peach. We put out shows. We put out, recaps of all the games. We like to call ourselves a comedic Orlando Magic and NBA podcast. We don't take ourselves too seriously. So if you're looking for a laugh and you're looking for some basketball, come on over to Court Cousins. You can also catch some of my writing at orlandomagicdaily.com. So thanks so much, Dan. And thank you, everyone out there.
Yes, you can find the links to Court Cousins' social media stuff, and I'll include their YouTube link in there as well. So go subscribe. A lot of fun. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on. And rest assured, I'll probably be pestering you again down the line.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime in this Orlando Magic community, Dan.